July the 27th, 2016. I'm in the wrong format. What else is new? And today, I want to remind everybody that's not familiar with this subject, that is, you're not a bad person for talking about Fukushima. You're not a bad person for criticizing July the 27th. I should have been gone. Sorry, folks. I'm a little slack here. Just got so much on my plate. And it's a good thing. It's just that it means I'm really, truly busy. And so it always takes us a minute or two to get the streams up and running. My apologies. But the first things first, not sure how this is going to turn up. I'm going to make this window bigger for a second. Okay, Dana, that's kind of like weird, Dana. Yeah, it's not supposed to zoom in when it's doing this, so I'm going to zoom back out. Okay. Now, I just posted a link in my chat room there. It's up higher. Hi, everybody. Good morning, everybody. This is the screen capture app. And if you click on that, it'll take you over to OCam. And if you click on that, you end up with this one here, free download. You click on that, you'll download it. Now you're looking at this screen right now, and so you can move the screen around, and that'll capture video. It'll do it in very high quality, and you can go over to any of these little squares and resize it to get the window that you want or not. And this is important. And what I want people to start doing is, when we make really solid points, remember where that's to, and you can go back and screen capture that, like a 30-second clip or something on a subject that might sum it up really good. That, you know, it could happen. And so you repost that. Now, all of my videos generally are an hour long, and I don't chop them up and repost it in segments. I'm burnt out from 260 days on the ocean, 15,000 miles, and everything that followed and everything before it, just like everybody else. But that is the most effective way to help get this word out. You don't have to do it with me. You can do it with anybody else out there that is really articulating a point on any subject. And so once again, you can download OCam. It's a free download. It comes with a whole bunch of crap. When you record, you'll get a little pop-up window getting you to buy it, and it's about $30. It's worth buying. I've been using it for about 4 years. I use the free version, and I always intend to go buy the version. And so the window looks like that. You click on your window and you can get rid of the big screen, and so you can use these things here. You can just move your window over a little tiny bit, and you can do captures, but the recording of the video is why I'm saying it, because you can use lots of screen captures, right? But it's very easy to use. And so once again, to remind you, you go to Tools, you click Option, and then at Save, you can go save it to your desktop. Just click Desktop, and it'll highlight like that, and click Save, and you'll see it says Desktop up here. And that way you can go to your desktop after and grab the video that was sitting there and come back over. I probably shouldn't have done that. You can upload it to your video channel. Okay, let's say hi to everybody right quick. A little slow on the start this morning. Good morning, everybody. And so when you close that OCam, you're going to get a pop-up. You pretty well get a pop-up for everything on the internet. If you want something free, just kill it and get rid of it. Good morning, everybody. Not going to try saying good morning to everybody this morning. Just going to jump into it. We'll say, at the end of the show, we'll say hi to everybody. Because I know I just dragged the video out for a very long time. But while I'm here, let me just resize that for the next time when I come back over and say hi to everybody. And I'm not sure what I got done there. Augmented reality is not supposed to be on that. Okay. All right. Let's go. Let's talk. Let's rock. Let's roll. Let's move and groove, and let's talk about this conversation. Quick question for everybody. And this one is actually worth being a viral video, what I'm going to say next. How many Allah Akbars does it take to equal that ship? Or those planes, or a single plane, or a single pilot? How many suicide bombers does it take to equal one of those planes? Anybody? In the chat room. So what I'm trying to say to you is all the suicide bombers on the planet combined couldn't equal one of those planes, the damage they do, one of those pilots. Forever and ever and ever. Do you understand how media works yet? Does that help you digest that? Okay. I'm not going to talk about 5.5 million rounds a month in Iraq and Afghanistan for 9 years to get 10,000 Taliban and creatures like this, things like this that, you know, they also pack A-10 Warthogs on these things. All they shoot is depleted uranium munitions. Most of the heavy munitions on these things are uranium-tipped, dual-ram, depleted uranium, low-level radioactive materials. Okay. So, just a quick one. Pokemon Go found in Fukushima. Gamers asked to avoid toxic Japan nuclear power plant. This is 5 years after the quake. This is Forbes, who's notoriously pro-nuke. But look at this paragraph. The very first paragraph they got there. This was yesterday, or Monday. Even though 5 years have passed, the second sentence, since an earthquake and tsunami caused a catastrophic nuclear meltdown, nothing has been decided yet on how to extract the melted fuel or how to decommission the crippled Fukushima Daiichi number 1 and the Daiichi number 2, which is the Daini plant. Which is what I've been telling people all along. This is only 10 kilometers from the Fukushima plant. It was also smashed by the tsunami. Yeah? Okay. And yeah, and they show the destroyed buildings in the back to articulate it for a change. That's the number 4 reactor in the back. But this is about Pokemon. And the game's developer, Niantic, says that the area around the number 1 and number 2, which is the Daini plant, this is the first time we've ever seen him mention the Daini plant in this context, should be an exclusion zone. An exclusion zone. Why? Because it wasn't just Fukushima that radiated the sailors. It was the Daini too. And there was 15 plants on that coastline in that 400 kilometers. Now we're starting to get it. Yeah, now we're starting to get it. Okay, well, let's take it one step further. Just so everybody's on the right page. Japan, massive earthquake, massive tsunami. The tsunami ran through the power plants, but this is not the right one. Hang on. Just because we do so much on our computers here. Now think about this map that's coming up after I show you this. We're all over the place today, aren't we? Some days are like that. You got melted reactor 1. Now that plant would look like that. The fuel pools would be up close to the roof, and the top of the reactor core is close to the roof. And then the heat at the top of that roof is because the reactor core and the fuel pool alongside of it went into a meltdown. That's the number 1. That's the number 2. She looks pretty good, eh? She's a charmer. Look at that baby. Just like Charles slap of paint on her and restart her, eh? Unfortunately, no. That is actually a confirmed 100% meltdown, melt-throughs, and melt-outs. This is 5 reactor cores were on the roof of that building. Now this is a cutout from the front of the building. It's not showing you the side pulls or the back pulls. But you don't need a cutout to understand there's nothing there, yeah? And you don't, which is the same one. This is number 3, rather. These are both number 3s. Totally gone. And so instead of everything symmetrical and all the fuel pulls up close to the roof, there is no roof. So those 5 reactor cores and most of the reactor itself, see how far up the reactor goes in the building is gone. That's number 4, and that's the same thing here where they tore it all the way down. Remember where the reactor cores were, right? And remember that yellow cap sitting right there? That yellow cap should be in the center of the building, up close to the top of the building. You can see it's totally destroyed, and they faked it on you. They tricked you. Just like they done, and let's get on with the show. Just like they done to these people. So it wasn't just the Fukushima Daiichi. It was all the other nuclear power plants that melted down, that couldn't go in a cold shutdown, that went in a station blackout, that had lost the power. And like when you think about these soldiers, these people from the communities, there's 5,000 men on the ship. And so their water and everything else, their food, their air system. Now we'll get into the story coming up here. I kind of jumped ahead of myself. Okay, so aircraft carrier to get post-Fukushima decontamination. So this is the 3rd one. They can't get rid of it. So they've grinded off, acid washed it, power washed it. They've done everything. They chemical washed it. So now it's going for a 3rd cleanup. Now, when you look back on this, they confirmed there were 16 ships contaminated with radiation. 16 ships contaminated with radiation. 16. See the guy there with the green on smiling at the very... It's hard to miss him. These are mostly young people. And they're soaking wet. And so the radiation is coming in contact with their bodies just because they're on the deck when the plume is still coming through. The plume didn't stop coming through there. Now, people don't understand that one. Try to get something right here today. People don't understand that one. Here's a representation in the TV screen of the plume from NOAA, from the American government model. So those ships were right there in your top left-hand corner of that model. Okay, that's probably not the best model. So the ships are in your top left-hand corner where that plume is coming out. Right now, that plume, on the 15th of March, this is NOAA's model. Now the ship is in close to that coastline. It's right there where that plume is emanating from. That plume is steaming out of there. It's steaming out of there. It's steaming out of there. Hang on, I smurfed up. I'll jump. So it's cruising out of there. It's still coming out of there, still coming out of there. And those ships are still right there. Okay, let's do that again. So it's coming out of Japan in your bottom right-hand side. Hang on, I'll get it right. Maybe. It's coming out, see right here, the ships are right here. Right, the ships are right where my top of my finger is to. So that plume is coming out, they're sitting in the plume all day, every day, non-stop. They can go 1,000 miles this way, 1,000 miles that way. They're still going to be in the plume. They're not getting away from that plume. You can't run, you can't hide. You can't hide on the ship. The ship has to bring in air. Now, Christina Consolo, rad chick, extraordinary researcher, academic herself, had interviewed the sailors, interviewed the people who were doing the maintenance on the helicopters and on the jets. They pulled something like 12 engines because they were so irradiated. So when the jet starts up, if it leaves that engine in, it's blowing that radiation stuff all over the deck again. It's a very complicated thing anyway. Okay. So they're over there. Hang on. Now, explain this again. The sailors, man, I gotta be shifting myself all over just to accommodate that story. Right up there, because the other hand got the mouse in it, and I'm no good. in the left-hand mouse. So I got to use my right hand this way. It looks weird. So me. So the sailors are right off that coast. They're right there in that plumb. The sailors are right at, if they're 100 miles off the coastline, they're around right here. Dana, your finger is gone. Dana, radiation ate my finger. It's eating my head. I'm dying. Get me. Hey. Dana saved me self. Okay. So there's 25 boats out there. Not 16, but 16 American sailboats, American military industrial complexes, mass murder machines are being murdered right there. Dana, you're not helping the story, Dana, by saying shit like that. I'm just telling the truth. Now, did it matter if you were here? Did it matter if you were there? Did it matter here? Excuse me. 1203. So this is France's model. No, Dana, France is just full of French people. They don't know nothing about dispersals. Dana, it's nonsense. Okay. So, let's try somebody else out there. Maybe they... Okay, hang on. Oh my God. Yeah. I gotta make this a little easier on myself. So it looks bad, so me. The ships are right here. They're right in the flow. What part about that is that people can't wrap their mind around? The ships are right there. What part about that is it that people don't understand? They're on the deck while that plume is coming out. Why is it you can't wrap your mind around something so simple? That these people are on the deck while the plume is coming out. While the plume is continuing to come out. What are they doing? They're out there breathing it with no respiratory, no way to mitigate it. Not that there is a way to mitigate that stuff. Stop doing what you're doing, Dan, and get busy. Oh, well, that is busy. I'm telling that story. Okay. So if the ships are here, I can fix myself now, maybe. Now we're going to go into the story. So the ships are there. And then the radiation is coming out. Yeah, radiation coming out, and they're sitting right there. Even if the radiation starts coming out, do you think that is just going to disappear? You think that is going to go away? You think that's going to be harmless and innocuous and benign all of a sudden? Yeah? Well, that's not true. That's not what happens. This is why... we'll go into the headlines and all kinds of other stuff right here, right quick. And then we're going to come back and cover these headlines coming up. So we're going to cover... Anytime you're ready, Dana, you can show everybody. That's not the one, Dana. That was the pokey. This one here, 16 U.S. ships ate it. We'll come back and cover that in a few moments. And the USS Reagan sailors were not exposed to radiation levels, according to that Stars and Stripes. July 17, 2014. Then, USS Reagan exposed to radiation levels exceeding what the government said. What was the date on that one? March the 14th, 2014. Are you confused yet? It's the same guy. Well, I don't know. July the 17th, March the 14th. So July the 17th, he said they're not. But March the 14th, he said they were. And God. So the second paragraph, Pokemon, I'm just making that up. Pokemon asked Donald about the difference between radiation levels they were finding and what they were being told by the Japanese. Well, I mean, why would you? You can go over to the Norwegian Institute for Air Research, and they did. I can assure you. They could go over to France, and they did. I can assure you. They can say to NOAA, "Hey, make us a friggin' model," and they did. I can assure you. And all the models would have showed what? All the models would have showed the same thing. Let me get one over close to my head. Uh-oh. Click something I shouldn't have clicked. All the models would have showed. Now I got to use that magic moment again. All the models would have showed that the sailors were on the deck, we're in the boat, and we're in the blow. Give it a couple of days. Here we go. This is by the hours, by the days at the top of the page. This is from France. You can go yell at them, not me. Okay? Why's my screen doing that? Oh, I gotta move myself back over. Because if I don't, somebody's gonna say, see, Dana, you don't know what you're talking about, Dana. You were pointing. The plume was over there, Dana wasn't here. Well, the sailors were on the boat right there. Right there. How convenient is that for Dana to be able to move himself around? They're right there. You're right here. Yeah, you're right there. You're no different than the sailor on the deck. That's not on the deck right now. But you know what I'm saying? You know where I'm coming from. You understand why I say it the way I say it. You understand what I mean when I said it. Because I shouted to you. And there's no excuses for you not to be able to appreciate it. That the sailors were on the deck. And they were on the deck when the plume was coming through. Past them. To get over here. Over here. Okay? Does that make sense? So then we got a science debunked viral videos of the high California radiation from Fukushima. Okay, let's talk about that for 1 second. Scientists debunked viral video. Okay, and they showed a reactor being flooded, sweeping all the radiation on the ground from the common spent fuel pools, where all the reactor cores from the first 20 years and 30 years is stored, back out into the, not back out, but out into the ocean. That's why they cemented the harbor floor. But it wasn't just Fukushima, it looked like this. And you should see the pictures of the tsunami, the wood chipper that went through Japan. Okay, so scientists said that it's from natural radiation. Yeah? From Santa Cruz, Stony Brook University. Right, they came out to cover it up, see? But spiking the number of U.S. sailors dying after Fukushima radiation exposure, over 400 veterans. We're going to burn through about 30 headlines right quick, and we're going to come back over to the Stars and Stripes to articulate a few more points, and by then the show will probably be over. Job well done. And with videos like this, you have to, because they're so complicated, there's so much documentation and evidence that you can't even bring here because no one's going to sit there for that whole time. So you got to tell that story in another way, in a shorter format, in other words. This can't be ignored any longer. It's right. And the reason being is because they were on the deck when the plume was coming through past them non-stop, just permeating out of these spots. Right? They were right there on the decks. They were out there rescuing people. They were out there flying the helicopters in, like Christina Consolo's interviews of the U.S. sailors. Go look it up, Ronald Reagan. It wasn't just Ronald Reagan, though. It was the Kitty Hawk, too. And it was 25 American Navy ships. So when they say the ships were 100 miles offshore, but the accident was on the shore, why were they 100 miles offshore? Why wouldn't they come all the way into the shore? That is the first question anybody should ask anybody about this who has any kind of skepticism about anything. Is why would they stay 100 miles offshore when people were being washed out to sea were a mile offshore? Why would you leave the boats 100 miles off? Because you know that was coming out. Boom! Game over for their nonsense, their theories. So what, if I was going to court as the lawyer, the first thing I would say to anybody trying to defend their stance on that the sailors never got exposed, is say, well, why did you keep them 100 miles off the coastline? Because there was vicious radiation out on the coastline, you know it. You sent them in there to rescue people because you wanted to study them long term, like you done with all the people you injected radiation into in the experiments over decades and decades and decades. You dug up their corpses after they died, crushed up their bones, cremated it, and checked for radiation to finish your academic studies that are behind the paywalls of Elsevier, Springer, and Wiley. Dead animals litter the California beaches. Alarming phenomenon, graveyards of washed up sea life, influx of malnourished sea creatures. And the animals are starving to death. April 7, 2016, they're covered in sores, stunted growths, weak immune systems. This is from Fukushima. 100% death rates of baby seals on the California coast. None have survived. Starving, suffering from shortages of food. Extremely thin, all sorts of illnesses. Infections. Milkless moms banning the pups immediately. This is a horror story after horror story. Fish famine is another one they called it. The dearth of the food across the ocean. And so Like, I've done 260 days on the coastline. I'm not just some armchair. Not that that's wrong. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I took it to a whole different level where I've done 260 days of the coastline of Canada and 15,000 miles and published that documentation at the nuclearproctologist.org. And there's an extinction event in the Canadian coastline. We are directly across from Japan. The ocean currents get here in 45 days. The jet streams got here, like I showed you earlier, within about 72 hours. And it was right the width of the Pacific Ocean, the width of North America, the width of the Atlantic, and the width of the European nation, Union countries, and back to Japan and back here again, and it never stopped doing that for 5 years. Like I showed you in the models, it never stopped coming out of there on top of that. And the models that we looked at are only based up on a couple of releases. They're not based up on the inventories. They're not based up on the melter reactors. Historical crisis. We're facing a fishery disaster. Never seen before things. Extinction threat for salmon run, sardines, squid, sea urchins, kelp. The herring, the anchovies, the krill, right, are also gone. Massive sea star death, and who's dependent upon. So the mussels should have exploded. Instead, they disappeared. And they came out a couple of weeks ago and said mussels have cancer throughout the Pacific of British Columbia and parts of the Atlantic. It's been confirmed heavy cancer in mussels. But the pictures I got of the entire coastline show there ain't no mussels. So that was their cover story. I'm not saying that cancer, this type of cancer didn't exist from all the radiation that showed up, because it never stopped coming out of there, and it didn't include any of the inventories. There's 5 reactor cores on each one of those buildings I showed you earlier on the roof of it that's missing. That's 5 meltdowns. These are unbelievable. Each of these reactors were 3 times the size of Chernobyl. Chernobyl was a 30% meltdown, stopped after 10 days. These things haven't stopped. West Coast bird die-off, biggest ever recorded. And now we see 500,000. They starved to death. They starved to death. That was saltwater mirrors. About a month and a half ago in Alaska and northern British Columbia, Canada. 500,000. The biggest ever seen on the planet. They starved to death. No anchovies, no squids, no sardines, no herring, no krill. They went into the interior lakes where they starved to death, 8,000 in one lake alone. Never seen this before. These birds can dive 600 feet in the ocean and find something to eat anytime they want. They couldn't. They went to the freshwater lakes where they starved because there was gone there also. Carcasses littering beaches for miles, complete reproductive failure. Birds and mammals and animals throughout the coastline. Insects. Out of the 300 plus species that are, 189 are residential, 186 are migratory, but they're considered regulars on our coastline of British Columbia, Canada. I counted 11 species in 260 days and 15,000 miles of the coastline. I'll just bring up the picture of the map of the expeditions that I've done. So anybody out there who's not familiar with that, and should be familiar with that, but you're not told about what I've done. See, you're not saying that. You're not told I built this operation and the hounds and the people that are concerned about Japan. And we went out there and we took on that whole coastline. That's the entire coastline of Canada. Each one of those arrows, you'll find corresponding GPSs up at the nuclear proctologist with the pictures, up to 1,000, 2,000 a day pictures of the coastline. The damage was so big and so vast and so huge, we weren't able to get samples because it was an extinction event. So we documented the whole coastline the best we could. And we got an incredible amount of underwater footage. And we took screen captures of that and put that up also at the nuclear proctologist of the underwater footage. So you can have that. And that's free for everybody. That's free. You don't have to go out and do the whole coastline. I already done it. You can. But I'm just saying, are you going to wait for somebody else to go do it before you look at the documentation? Or are you going to go if you're going to look at the documentation? Because there should be 5,600 species in the tidal pools. Every one of them. And during low tide, which is only a couple hours, you should be able to count around 300 or 400 species. These highly visible species, no matter what tide pool you're in. And so when we went there, I was out there for 5 months by myself on this one, there was nothing there. This is what it looked like pre-Fukushima. Pre-Fukushima, everything was just full of life. Everything was thriving. It was amazing. After Fukushima, when I was up there, it was unbelievable. You will starve to death. You can put everything that I saw that was alive on that coastline in the back of a transport truck over 260 days. Over 260 days, everything I saw would fit in the back of a single pickup truck. When normally you couldn't possibly put a whole beach in the back of a transport truck. Normally, there was so much life there, it was hard to wrap your mind around it. Let me get to the really, before we jump back. Like, life on the coastline was amazing, was inconceivable, was unimaginable. This is all from the same spot, by the way. Pre-Fukushima shots. This is what the low tide would look like everywhere you went at low tide. Yeah? No, that's not amazing or nothing, is it? Now it looks like that. Why would you go there? Why would you bother? Why would you care? Why would you burn all that gas? This is in the middle of nowhere. And so that was an extinction event. Back over. They're eating themselves from the inside. Cancers, liver, pancreas, intestines shut down, infested with parasites. Unprecedented, catastrophic, to cause the loss of 200,000 sea lions. They're eating themselves. They're emaciated. Same thing with the polar bears in the Antarctic. Plutonium detected recent in California air samples. But what they were saying earlier was that they got debunked because someone went down there and found radiation. The universities went down and debunked them by saying it was natural. But look at some of the stuff I'm going to show you. New York Times contributor confirmed the California rainwater was 181 times above the drinking water standard. How much rainwater, or how much was in the air those sailors were breathing? They were right in front of the reactors. Even if they were 100 miles offshore, even if that is true, which we find a lot of evidence showing that's not true. At one point, I'm sure they were 100 miles offshore. A ship without an admiral on it. The admiral left the ship. New York Times contributor confirms California rainwater. But those sailors were interviewed by Christina Consolo. And he told horrific stories for well over an hour of what they'd done. Where people were going in the hallway and defecating on themselves. Not just one or two, but hundreds of people in hallways couldn't get in the bathrooms because they were full of people defecating all over the bathroom. From radiation sickness. And they were right in the plume. Radioactive iodine 131 all day, every day. They couldn't get away from it. And then the plume goes up to sea, the wind changes and blows it right back at them. So the wind keeps blowing it back at them day after day after day. The wind changes and blowing out that other stuff day after day after day. And it's just this, those models I'm showing you are not even, they're only 1/1 billionth at best close to what they should look like. The models that I showed you earlier from the institutions around this planet. So radioactive iodine from Fukushima. Now there's 10 times more 132, 30 times more 133 that ionizes and radiates your thyroid glands 9 times more effectively for every iodine 131 that's created. And would have showed up at the exact same time because they don't travel by themselves. There was 31 times more iodine 129 with a 15 million year half-life. And the reason we have terrorist laws and the reason we have nuclear waste sites is because this stuff comes from a chain reaction. It's not like the stuff from nature. The stuff from nature, we're acclimated to it through genetic superior selection, through eons of evolution. Everything that comes out of a chain reaction is created, and that chain reaction is ionized at that point, the minute, the second that it was created. And that property never goes away. Like normal emitters on the planet have 10 half-lives. They turn to lead. Everything out of a chain reaction, if you go read the literature, never stops decaying in the half-lives. That's perpetual. They consider it insignificant after 10 because they want to equate everything with nature, like bananas, potato chips, walking in the sunshine, getting on airplanes. And this stuff is ridiculously stupid. We're talking about ingesting radioactive atoms, dirty bombs from a chain reaction. They're talking about eating something that you eat every day and equating that with health risk. To deceive you, to manipulate you, to fool you, to trick you, to disarm you, to disalarm you. China rejects a ship from California with abnormal radiation. Had only been in Tokyo. How long were those ships doing rescue operations off the coastline when the biggest plumes were coming through? When the reactor cores were detonating? When the reactor cores that were on the roof were atomizing and aerosoling and turning into those plumes of those models, of these models, are only based upon two isotopes, 137 and iodine 131. And once again, iodine 131, both of those isotopes are tracers. Is a better way of looking at it. Is the right way to look at it. Is the academic way to look at it. And then you should never say cesium. You should never say iodine. You should never type that into a comment or in a conversation anywhere without immediately saying the words, they are tracers, and that meant everything else is there. They're used as tracers is a better way of explaining to people. When people hear cesium-137 and then the doses are, well, it wasn't a big enough dose of cesium-137. Yeah, well, let's add up all the other radioactive isotopes. There's 100 times more strontium-90 for every cesium-137 that's created in the mixed oxide fuel reactors, which is the number 3 reactor in Japan, was 2 million times worse than any other current reactor on the planet. It was 4,500 times worse than all the reactors combined on the planet. And so another way to explain this is that the amount that this model is based upon, if they use natural emitters, then that model, these plumes wouldn't exist because they don't work that way. Natural stuff. But man-made per gram is 88 curies, and a curie is 37 billion atoms. And you can put 2 million atoms on the head of a needle, you can't see, but that's 2 million cancers distributed out. And cancers take 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years to manifest, diagnose. But why that's happening, you should be looking for autism, diabetes, and Alzheimer's, dementia, and heart, liver, lung, respiratory, pituitary, adrenaline gland. Shows up long time, 1,800 autoimmune deficiencies, illnesses, diseases will show up before cancer. But cancer can show up really quick, particularly bone cancers and the manifestations from the bone. So strontium, plutonium, americium, neptunium, they're these highly volatile radioactive particles. Now the reactors are run on uranium and plutonium, but mostly uranium. And mostly man-made uraniums, isotopes, extracted from the 238. So you take 238 out of the ground. When it goes through a chain reaction, now it's ionized. Now it's no longer got anything to do with the 238 that was in the ground. Now it's actually a weapon. Now it's a dirty bomb. Now it has to be treated with and in respect. It's a very volatile. And so a lot of these gases are named noble. Well, they're all noble gases, I'm sorry. And the reason they're calling them noble gases is like, you know, the old school where noble was someone you had to respect, or their henchmen would kill you and burn your house down and stuff like that. Well, noble gases have to be respected, because if you get a single one in your body attacks with white blood cells till the end of time. And it takes 10, 20, 30 years for the white blood cells to turn it into, just put it in a sarcophagus. We call that a tumor. And then that will get diagnosed, right? But at the same time, you're displacing the oxygen molecules in your blood, and then you're in the red blood cells with all the mineral and nutrients that are carried in the red blood cells are displaced, so the white blood cells can come out and attack that for decades. So you get a cut on your hand, your body floods itself with white blood cells, and it fixes it, and then it all goes back to normal. Your oxygen blood level rises back up to normal. When you get man-made radiation, your oxygen will never rise to normal, ever. If you got a single isotope into you, a single atom with an isotope in it, the tumor will go around in 30 years to chop it out. Then it takes a couple of decades for your body to repeat attacking and healing that scar and tissue and everything, if it doesn't spread somewhere else, if it doesn't mutate. If it gets into your bones, it mutates your stem cells, you're done. And you can treat that with stuff like DCA, dectochloride acid. It's just a mineral. It's very caustic. So if you take a little tiny bit of it and a little drop of water and put it on your skin, or a sore, like a cut on your finger, something like that, you'll literally almost scream with agony. You know you got DCA, proper DCA. You don't need a, there's no patent on DCA, and you don't need a prescription to get it. But it's hard to get. You can only get it at compound chemist. Go to a compound pharmacy with a pharmacy with a compound chemist. Phone them up and ask them, do they have a DCA? They know what it is. It's been used to treat, or to try to treat really weird illnesses. Now what that does is it unplates your blood. And so for people with leukemias and blood disorders, that's what your body needs done. It needs to unplate its blood. Because leukemia, the blood plates up and then you start dying. You can also do that same trick with structured water. And structured water is water that ran through mountains, through minerals, not through machines and not treated with chemicals. So stuff that was treated with chemicals or ran through electronic machines, you change the structure. Now scientists know how to change the structure back, and they know how to change that structure. They just don't know why it does that. They don't know. And water is the only one that got three properties of gas, liquid, and solid, right? That can be those three. Without water, we don't exist. Without water, we can't survive more than 72 hours. I've rescued people at sea that have been lost at sea for 72 hours. They were delirious and lethargic and everything else, and they were sunburned. But you're surrounded by salt water, so it kind of sucked. That's an extreme case of it. But 3 days without water, I've rescued a lot of people off bottoms of boats in hurricanes and storms. And I've ran 12 commercial vessels here in British Columbia alone. And so I'm an old sea dog in that case. I had 30,000 hooks before I came west and started as the commercial diving industry. I went back and dove the east coast of the Atlantic. So I have 14,000 hours underwater, not just some random person talking about the subject, okay? Really know my stuff really well. And come from a community still got no automobiles. So I grew up trained to understand everything around me and every creature and animal around me. And in a traditional way. So now I'm into this world where it's all internets and computers where we don't barely have TV even now down there. Just through satellites, but it's still really bad because it's so isolated. It's such a weird spot with so many mountains around you. Anyway, let's keep going. I lost track. So mountain water, spring water is structured water. Allegedly, you can buy devices now to structure your water back. Structured water unplates your blood. That's so important that I put that out there. So important you understand that for the future. And another way to look at this is structured water. Your plants will mature one third times, or 2/3 the times it normally takes. So 1/3 times quicker, and you'll get 1/3 times more foliage and weight, volume, harvest in 1/3 less time than it normally took. On top of that, and you get a hell of a lot less parasites and stuff like that by using structured water. And so structured water would also be glacier water that wasn't polluted, and was stuff that is, when you use a machine on structured water, is no longer structured water. So don't use a pump if you got a lot of structured water. Don't use a pump to bring. You have to do it the old-fashioned way. You have to make a hand pump or something to extract it if that's the way you're going to do it. And just look up the plans. Well, I used to make them all the time. They're really simple to make, these old hand pumps. We used to make them for also boats and that too, right? Back before there was electric pumps. Well, I grew up, we were lucky, we had an alarm clock and a compass, right? And that's how we navigated. There was no sounders or radars or stuff like that back in those days. Let's keep going, because I'll run out of time if I don't watch myself. China rejects the ship from California, but the aircraft carriers are okay, Dana. By March 21st, 5 nuclear isotopes in Fukushima detected in Seattle, iodine 131, 132, which ionizes and radiates your thyroid glands 9 times more effectively than iodine 131, and there was 10-to-1 ratio of 132 compared to iodine 131. And cesium-134, cesium-137, but not mention the strontium, were 100 times more strontium-90. Not counting the other strontium, like strontium-84, 85 would have been there too. And they have like a 45-day half-life. So why have it iodine when you could have had these other strontium? Well, because they go into the bones. Iodine got an 8-day half-life. Swedish embassy tells citizens to begin. So why talk about that? Well, because it was a tracer. So you see it in all the studies, But you're able to extrapolate that there was 31 times more iodine-129 for every iodine-131. Blue. Swedish embassy tells the citizens to get the frig out of Dodge. Start moving through this stuff. Nuclear forecast: radioactive particles appear to concentrate over the surface in northern California. I said California. So me. Radioactive fallout has now reached southern California. Yummy. Nuclear policy experts striking the radioactive iodine in California water so far above levels permitted. Well, there is no acceptable level of any of it, because if you got one, you got this one, that one, those, them, right? You got 10 times more 132, 30 times more 133, 31 more times all these daughters of just iodine. But the reactors don't run on iodine, they run on uranium, plutonium. And their biggest producer is curium isotopes. Curium isotopes is the same as plutonium. So curium isotopes, a major byproduct in studies, 1989 studies were showing that the curium, they never had no use for it at the time, they still don't, that I know about, only for directed energy weapons, for lasers. So they're insidious everywhere you look at them. Curium isotopes are major byproducts in radiated fuel rods. Oh gee, what was on top of the reactor buildings? 5 reactor cores of fuel rods. See? Instead of saying reactor core, they say fuel rods. Everybody go back to sleep. Yeah? Because the urgency doesn't seem to be the same for a fuel rod as it is for a reactor core. But that is what it is. It's full of reactor fuel rods in reactor assemblies. In fuel assemblies. Boom. Let's keep going. So, the biokinetic models showed that the curium isotope, was just as deadly as the plutonium when it was inhaled into the dogs for 35 years at Respiratory Research Institute in New Mexico. Dr. Raymond Gilmedi, right, they got the Loveless Respiratory Research. He's involved in other institutions. What? I use this one in particular. So, deaths from radiation, 1 to 5 to 5.4 years. Death. And what were the deaths? Tumors of the lung, skeleton, liver occurred beginning 3 years after exposure. Began occurring 3 years after exposure. Bone tumors found in 93 dogs were the most common cause of death. Bone tumors, 93 out of 144. 144. And do you think for one second that Loveless is the only one out there doing this? Huh? Do you think Americans are the only one out there doing this? Do you think that this information is not known to all the journalists out there who talk about fruit flies? To all the academics who talk about bananas? To all the experts who talk about walking in sunshine? Do you think they don't know about this? You'd be stupid to think that way, because they made you that way. It's not your fault. Bone tumors found in 93 dogs were the most common cause. Competing tumors of the liver and lungs were the second most cause, but they all died within 5 years. Have a nice day. Give us another 144 dogs. We'll kill them the same way. Piece of cake. And Gilmedi got 44 studies. He got studies, man, that'll leave you sleepless for a week. You don't want to read them. Studies. I got so many studies. I should count them one day. I bet you I got 30,000 studies. Actual studies. And I probably got, who knows, 50, 60,000 of just a synopsis. I've been at this a long time, though. But it was a learning curve, right? Like everybody else is trying to go through it. I never had anybody to turn to help me like this. If I was able to find one video like this 8 years ago, with this kind of information, with this direction, with this many facets, nuances, minutiae, then I definitely would have been able, right now I would be a machine. Latest forecast, all of California. That's not the one. Next one. Not that one. Either, Dana. Oh yeah, that is one. Latest forecast is all of California on a radiation threat, April 6 to 7. We're running out of time, I know. I'll come over and say hi to everybody just a few minutes. That's the way it works sometimes. Why are people in full body suits and face masks when checking radiation at the water facility? Why are they wearing that stuff? That was April 6, 2011, because of Fukushima. The plumes are going to go into your water, your drinking facilities. That's where it's all going to show up to for you to find it. And your coastlines if you're in the Pacific Rim nations. Radioactive rain caused 130 schools in Korea to close, yet the rain in California had 10 times more. And they didn't close a single school. But South Korea did. You know why? Because they gave a shit. Because they care. They didn't want their children, right? They're not part of the nuclear nut machine, which is what America is. It's just, there's so many nuclear PR firms in America, you're not even allowed to have a conversation about it without asking permission first. If you're in the media or anywhere else, you have to talk to the PR firms. If you're any academic out there that wants to talk about nuclear on a radio show or something like that, you got to get an okay from the nuclear PR firms, or you already got to know how to drive it. Total control. Because they're terrified you're going to find out it's not like a banana or a potato chip. They're terrified you're going to see Dr. Raymond Gilmedi's studies and then realize there's thousands and thousands and thousands of just Dr. Raymond Gilmedi killing dogs. There's millions of studies on killing animals. Every animal died every time since they've been doing it. Never cured an animal, never saved an animal. Every animal died of vicious tumors, vicious cancers. But no, fruit flies do okay, Dana. Fruit flies are doing okay, Dana. I've never seen the fruit flies get harmed when we expose them to the natural radiation, Dana. No, because it's homeostasis. Your body can't get any more in it that's already there. Regulates like the thermostat, regulates the temperature in your house or the automobile, regulates the cruise control, rather it regulates the speed of your vehicle. That's what homeostasis does. Natural, we regulate it, we can't get any more. We eat it all the time, it's natural, it's everywhere. We're acclimated through genetic superior selection. Man-made, our body attacks it. We get a single atom, our body attacks it for decades with white blood cells, trying to kill it. And you got less oxygen, and you're susceptible to 1,800 diseases before the cancer shows up. And the cancer doesn't show up for decades. Organic milk bot in San Francisco, yeah, no, cesium-134, 137 are tracers. 100 times more strontium-90 in the same stuff. Whatever they found. So not only that, but strawberries, mushrooms, cesium was found, a tracer was found there. In California, 5 out of the 6 items in the food chain, sampling tests for radioactive tracers. That's all they're testing for is the tracers. So the nuclear scientists will sit there and snicker because people are speculating about the tracer. And he knows, and she knows, that they're supposed to talk about all the other isotopes. But if you do that, you'll never get a job anywhere. If you do that, their families will know they're monsters. All nuclear scientists, by proxy, are monsters. They got to prove themselves otherwise. And that's impossible. They stayed there and got a job and got a career. They're by proxy monsters. Their job is to come out and tell you it's like a banana and potato chip. And you say, well, he's a nuclear scientist, Dana. Yeah, and I got my own set of eyes. I can go read the literature, and the literature says it's not. And then as you read more and more and more, you find out what the word not actually means. It means these people are murderers. What they do is murder. A sponsored, state-sanctioned murder. And then media allows these people to come out and murder you to tell you the lie. Oh, it's okay, go ahead and eat the fish. The radiation, there's a lot more natural than man-made from Fukushima, so don't worry about it. You should go find their kid and make their kid eat the fish. Here, kitty. Tell Daddy I gave you a radiated fish from Fukushima when you go home. So watch his reaction. Strawberries and mushrooms. Give him some mushrooms and strawberries. First time radioactive cesium tracer found in spinach and kale and pizza. Renowned nuclear policy expert, every amount of radiation exposure increases your risk of cancer. Yeah, because man-made. See, what does that do? What does that say to you? That doesn't really do it. This one does it justice, though, I must admit. In the context of it, actually shows the northern hemisphere and how the radiation over 40 days, this is all this model is based upon, when it stops is 40 days later. So you can see the countdown, 2011, 3, the 21st of March, 22nd of March, originally. It never stopped coming out of there, and the model is only based upon 2 isotopes that are tracers. It's not based upon, and that's all you're seeing there is the 2 tracers, and the colors are the different intensities of that tracer. That's all that is. And so it's meant to educate them and their friends and their families and their loved ones, but not you. It's meant to educate the ones in the know. It's horrific what they've done to the sailors, but it's horrific what they've done to the rest of us. It's horrific what they're doing in Japan. But the model is not, is not including the 5 reactor cores that are on each of the roofs that are gone. definitively. I showed you the pictures earlier. They're gone, see? There's no top to the building to be there for them to hang out in. And when they lose power, and they did, so they say there's no public health at California beaches due to the radioactive material. And here's another one saying about a recriticality, September 19th, chain reaction on its own. So it's never stopped coming out, is what I'm saying to you. Every amount of radiation exposed increases a single atom will give you cancer in 10, 20, 30 years. If you're ingesting it, like California had 1,500 atoms per cubic meter of air. What did the sailors on the Kitty Hawk and the Reagan have is the big question, yeah? So we'll come up and touch on those stories before we take off, because otherwise, I think I covered it pretty good at the beginning, really. That's why I kind of moved on right away. When I say, there's Japan, the sailors are right there. What part about that is that you can't wrap your mind around? The sailors are right there in that plume, right? It doesn't matter where they're took. They're 100 miles offshore, 5 miles offshore. They're right in the plume. It does matter. Trust me, it does matter. Like if you're within a couple of miles rescuing people, you got brutal doses. But if you're on that ship for 24 hours, you're dead people walking. And you need to be taken care of because of that kind of exposure. And you'll get multiple cancers like the study I showed you, liver. Not only that, that's just 3 that killed the animal. There was way more tumors as you go down these studies and read them. It wasn't just, that's the 3 tumors that showed up. No. There was all these other diseases, 1,800 diseases. They know Alzheimer's and dementia and autism in children. And diabetes is the big teller. You can find diabetes. There's 6 times more breast cancer around nuclear power plants. There's 90% more, 90% more a child leukemia is around nuclear power plants within a 15-mile zone. Same for that breast cancer. 6 times more breast cancer. See, the studies are well known on the dogs, the beagle dogs. That ends their way of arguing with you once you show those studies. If the crew of the USS Ronald Reagan shows the Dr. Raymond Gilmedy, who's been doing it for 35 years, his studies are definitive. All the dogs died. These people were breathing a lot more. The dogs were getting 1 inhalation. These were on the deck breathing it all day long. They were in their bunks breathing it through the ear systems all day long. It's going in for its 3rd decontamination. These ships are going in for their 3rd decontamination now because it's still on the ship. It's still throughout the ventilation systems. It's still throughout. This stuff, it has a Wigner effect. It attaches itself to stuff, and so they were grinding it off and acid washing it and using unimaginable chemicals to try to get this stuff off. At the 2 other decommissioning, where they put it in the shipyards and try to decommission it. They kept it 100 miles offshore because they knew the plume was there, but they didn't tell the soldiers to wear protective gear or to take any mitigating because they were to be thrown away. They were sacrificed like the dogs in the studies. That's all these people are treated like. They're pawns. And pawns have to be sacrificed and have to be used. And you can't use them in a war. You use them in experiments. And it has a very long history of doing that. This is not something new, okay, that Dana came up with out of the blue. No, that is the reality of it. And so we'll come over and say hi to everybody. And thank you, everybody, for your support and for doing the things you do. And once again, you got to realize to the people out there that got exposed heavily on those ships. I don't say the things I said lightly. I say it because I've been saying it so much I can say it nonchalant. And I know sometimes that don't come across to the victims the way it should. And sometimes it do. But so I worry about that side too. And I understand. That's why I do what I do. I know you're victims. And there's so many of you in so many different ways and so many people, and the children in throughout Japan, the thyroid issues in Japan pre-Fukushima were 1, 2, 3 for children out of 1 million. Now it's 13,600, not out of 1 million, but out of 40,000. And so we see an event. This is an event to die off the Pacific Ocean. I've done 260 days on the coastline, okay? I'm already battered and bruised and beaten too. I've been fighting for everything and everybody in the 8 million species on this planet. and I don't get no traction. I get nothing but censorship. Google has me pinned down. The justice system has been relentlessly attacking me. The media has been throwing me to the pit bulls. And then the vicious nuclear PR firms, these soulless, spineless, heartless creatures, these monsters that are never going to be challenged or never be held accountable, and that their own friends and families and loved ones have no idea that they have those monsters, these freaks of nature in their midst, in their groups. The worst thing we've ever done is created a nuclear PR firm. The people that created those are the most vile people imaginable. People that work for them are the second most vile people imaginable. Nuclear PR firms is where people go when they have no soul, where they have no apathy. Or when they have apathy. I mean, they found a cure for apathy, but nobody cured, right? Let's say hi to everybody. Hugs for everybody. Just cruising. Radical. Home goddess. Refuses to vote between Demon A and Demon B. Look, you know, I'm going to weigh in on that right now, on Trump and Hillary. Hillary's got a history of mass murder, and Hillary got a history of being a murderer. She got no qualms about it. Trump, as far as we know, doesn't murder people, hasn't murdered millions, hasn't left millions of children homeless year after year. Okay? There's a difference. Whether you like it or not, people like it or not, I'm not talking to anybody in particular, I'm just saying, people are buying into this media of Donald Trump. We built walls in Mexico before, okay? We got walls all over America. There's walls everywhere throughout the world. Each country does it. And that has been used. I'm not saying Trump's a good guy. I'm saying you're stuck with one or the other. And you better make a decision. You better go one or the other. And if you go Hillary, then you got a world of misery coming at you immediately. It's never going to stop. You go Trump, you don't know. Trump doesn't have that history. He likes to keep himself clean. He likes to keep his toupees nice and tight. He doesn't like blowback that can come from war, okay? He don't have that kind of guts. I don't think he do. I think he took that and for some reason that he probably still don't even understand. And a lot of people say, no, he's a multimillionaire, blah, 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 silver spoon in the mouth. Agreed wholeheartedly. I'm just saying, Hillary's a monster. Hillary's proven herself to be a monster. Clinton's have proved themselves to be monsters. If you do nothing, Clinton will get in. If you do everything you can do, Clinton will probably still get in. I'm just saying, but there is a difference. Don't think there's not. Yes, they're both fucking rotten as they get. I agree wholeheartedly. But I do know Clinton, and I do know Trump, and I do know Trump doesn't have the dirty hands that Clinton got. Trump, actually, who knows, might be able to do something good. I'm not saying right, but do something good. Hi, everybody. Hugs, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, I know. I know Radical. I'm not saying. By the way, Radical Home Goddess, she's blogging all the time. She got a little book out. Might be a big book. I'm not sure. But she got a book out on Fukushima. I encourage people to support her. She hasn't stopped trying. And it's an e-book, I think, if I remember correctly. And it's a read. It's a chance to try to understand it. And if I write a book, I'm not going to get everything right either. So if she does make mistakes, don't disregard her just because of that. I make mistakes all the way through. I found a difference and helped share it with you and try to restore that. That's all you can do. And we're all going to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. And don't be afraid to admit you made a mistake when you make a mistake, because that's the only way forward. And right now, the only way forward is in one way to help the USS Reagan and the 25 ships, the Kitty Hawk and everybody else win that lawsuit, raise that awareness, get that justice. I mean, the victims in Iraq and Afghanistan, where they fired 5.5 million rounds a month, every month for 9 years to get 10,000 Taliban, might want to sue them and get some of that money too. Who knows? Everybody wins though, if they win. See? As bizarre as that one just sounded. Miss Frill never stops, by the way. She's got a website. She never stopped. Never stopped when I was on the ocean. Never stopped, even when I was an asshole, and still continues to go today. Is like me, where the world is just a world, and some days you got in the wrong spot of the world, and the world didn't work out for you. That's my problem most of the time. My problem is I know I could do much more, and I don't have that ability to do it. And I don't like to ask people because I just can't stand doing it. We already done too much of it. We already done 260 days on the ocean of asking to make that happen. But like you say, you know, I'm going to be ordering lights really soon. It's going to totally change everything I'm doing. And that's a huge step forward for me. I still need to buy another mic. I still need to buy a recorder, proper recorders. And there's so many of these things that are $1,500 a pop for this, $7,000 for that, for the Skype machine, proper ones, to do this reel, to do these interviews and do these documentaries and everything else that's coming our way. You know, I can't do it, see? I don't have the financial backing. I can't get it, and I don't know how to do it. And I don't, and everything else I'm doing is impossible for me to do what I do every day, but I do it. I know, Miss Frill, I'm never alone. I never was, and I get that, absolutely. That's why I do what I do. I'm sure of it. It's something I do take into account all the time. Fukushima exposed. William. Radical. Symbol. Graham. We know Jan was out there. We know Elaine is out there. Shanikin. We know Candace is out there. Amthurs was out there. Ellie is out here. Alex is out here. Alex created that circus music I used in my couple of videos back, a 10-minute video. He got a whole bunch for me like that. Really neat stuff. Hi, everybody. Nathan. And so we're going to give it up here right now. I just want to come home and say hi and hello. Graham. I haven't got my glasses on. Starlight. Mr. Arenas. And that's Hyperboreal. Hi, everybody. There's some of your names I shorted on you, and you got shortchanged. Just make sure I got everybody that I could find. And because you can only comment when the video starts. And then when the video's over, all those comments will disappear. So if you go looking under this video, A Beautiful Girl by Dana on YouTube, my site, you won't see those comments, but they were right there. We did stream in 1080. And that's shocking. Google does that to everybody. And people just don't care. They come in and they're there to have that conversation. But see, if they left the comments there, it creates more conversations, brings more people to the conversation. And people are able to resolve questions or answers that people were trying to get or help each other out with, or whatever the case may be, right? So hugs for everybody. We'll be back again soon enough. Please donate at thenuclearproctologist.org. You can donate with your credit cards there. You'll find links under this video how to donate and get there, and also to PayPal directly to danadurnford@hotmail.com. You'll find links under this video at Beautiful Girl by Dana. And for other people, you'll find all kinds of links under my video to all kinds of other people. Right? I'm not just Dana. I never was, never will be. Under my videos, everything but Dana. Everything I can find out there. And that's the show for today. Take care, folks. We'll see everybody soon enough.